Good morning, everybody. Happy Tuesday to you. I hope that your December is off to a good start. Well, my purpose of today's video is to talk about something boring that we don't think about, but we all do it, and that is buying gasoline for your car. Okay, typically, most people look at the price at the pump as to, you know, where they're going to stop and get gas. You'll see a station, it'll be 279, and then you'll see another station, it's 286. Is it worth it to do a U-turn to go and get the gas at the 279 place? Is it worth it to drive a couple miles out of your way to save 5 cents a gallon? Maybe, maybe not. It depends on the situation. But rather than just price, there's something to be thought of for the long term life of your car. You may or may not have heard of what they call top tier gasolines, TOPTIER. Um, some people will say it's just a marketing gimmick, but it actually is a real thing. A lot of modern cars have gasoline direct injection engines. That's basically where the fuel and air mixture, the fuel gets sprayed into the cylinder as the air comes in, right into the cylinder, versus the tune port injection where it's injected in the port with the air. Um, I'm not really a mechanic, but I understand the difference of it when I look at a drawing of it. But the GDI operates under a much higher pressure, and you have these injectors that spray. I don't know, it's like 3,000 pounds per square inch. It's something astronomical, the fuel pressure, the way it sprays. If you get deposits in there, it can mess up the way they spray. You also can get deposits on your valves. Your valves are basically, you have your intake valve and your exhaust valves. Some engines have two intake and two exhaust valves. Ford used to have one where I think it had two intake and one exhaust, but most have one of each. Some engines have two of each, especially if it's an overhead cam design. But nevertheless, what they call multi-valve engines. But over the long term, you can get deposits on there. Top tier fuels contain certain additives that help to fight deposits. If you use cheap gas all the time, you could end up where you get about 60,000 miles on your car and it doesn't run quite right and it's clogged up. And if you take it to a shop, they'll probably charge you about $500 to clean the thing out. Personally, with my vehicles, I try to use top tier gas as much as possible. I don't use it all the time, but I try to use it as much as possible. And every time I change the oil, which is between 4 and 5,000 miles of full synthetic, I take a bottle of either Techron or the STP super concentrated fuel injector stuff in the black bottle. It'll cost you about $3, but I'll pour it into the gas tank and then fill the tank and then run that tank till it goes down to about an eighth of a tank and run it through there. And I've never had a problem with clogged fuel injectors ever over the past, 40 years of driving. But with the gasoline, top tier fuel brands include Marathon, Costco, Shell, Exxon. I think it's Phillips 66, Sinclair, Sunoco, Valero, and yeah, Shell. Um, there may be a few others. You can go to look online, just do a search on top tier gasoline, and it'll show it to you. Basically, all gasoline is the same in your market. The EPA requires certain blends of fuel for each region. Um, so if you buy gas at one gas station or another one down the street, it's pretty much going to be the same gasoline. But if it's top tier and you go to a top tier brand, they guarantee that it always has the additives. If you buy gasoline from Sheetz or Wawa or Circle K or Arco or, one of the off brands, 7-Eleven, for instance. Oh, Citgo is top tier as well. 7-Eleven used to sell Citgo, but now they, as far as I've seen it, most of them, they're unbranded. Mobile is another top tier brand. But nevertheless, if you buy gasoline that's not a top tier station, you still might be getting top tier gasoline. Um, it's not guaranteed. When typically you'll have a refinery that'll have a long pipeline going up to a tank farm where the tractor trailers load up, where they go to the different gas stations, and um, they don't have as many pipelines as you might think. So they'll run, say they run 1 million gallons of Exxon gasoline through there, and it's got the additives in it and whatnot. Then they'll run Shell, or maybe they'll run um, I don't know, Arco or Valero. They run different brands through there. And some of your Sheets and Wawa will buy gasoline on, I think they call it the spot market. They'll just buy certain quantities of gasoline, and some of it might be from one brand, some of it might be from another. So they can't put the top tier label on it. You still might be getting top tier gas. And I'm not telling you that you're going to have a problem if you buy gas at Sheets or Wawa, because I've done it myself many times. But with top tier brands, you get the same additive package in the 87 octane regular, 89 or 90 octane mid grade, or 92, 93 octane premium. You have the same additive package. I know that Shell has, I think they call it V Power, that they put some extra additives in their 93 octane premium, but all their gasoline blends are still considered top tier. You just might get a little extra with a V Power. And that might come in handy if you have a car like a Corvette or a Ferrari or a McLaren, or a Camaro SS, Mustang GT, something that has higher compression that needs a good premium gasoline. That V Power is certainly not going to hurt you. Now, if you it's going to vary by state. If you live out in Denver, Colorado, 85 octane is regular there. 87 is mid grade, and usually like 90, 91 will be your premium, because you're at a high altitude, the air is thinner, the engine's not as likely to knock, so you don't need as much octane. But here on the East Coast and most parts of the Midwest, I suppose, 87 octane is regular. 89 or 90 is going to be premium, mid grade, and then your premium would be 92 or 93. But several gas stations here now, they sell what's called E15. Almost all gasoline in Virginia, with very rare exception, almost all gasoline is what they call E10. And I suppose it's that way in other states too. E10 means 10% ethanol, 90% gasoline. You're going to have a hard time finding ethanol free gasoline. Some stations sell it, but they charge you a lot more for it. And usually I think the octane is 90. But that's mainly for boats, lawnmowers, generators, things that aren't supposed to have ethanol in the gasoline. Ethanol in gasoline can ruin a lawnmower. So if you do have a lawnmower, whether it's a 2 cycle or a 4 cycle engine, you're best off buying ethanol free gasoline if you can find it. If not, you buy E10, and you just put, there's stuff called Stabil, and there's another Stabil. There's also something called Startron. It looks like mouthwash, but it fights ethanol. And if you put, I think it's an ounce for every 2 gallons or something like that into a tank, it will minimize the damage done to small engines by ethanol. Um, modern cars are designed to run on E10, no problem. But if you're using in a small engine, some Stabil might be good. If you're using it for 2 cycle, where you premix the um, the oil in with the gasoline, I don't think you need to use fuel stabilizer in that, because when you put that little thing of the oil in there, I think it mixes it up pretty good. Just I wouldn't let it sit over the winter. If you mix it, I wouldn't let gasoline sit that long, because it will deteriorate a little bit. So, like with my lawnmower, I used it last week. I cut the grass for the last time and ran the gas out of it and drained the oil out of it. So come spring, I'll put a new spark plug in it. I'll put uh, a new air filter in it, and I'll put new fresh oil in it. But they have the E15 gasoline now available at Sheetz and some Wawa stations. What that is, it's 15% ethanol and 85% gasoline. It is only suitable for vehicles made in the past 25 years. Um, I think it goes back to like 2001, 2000, something like that. And it's 15% ethanol, and it's about 30 cents a gallon cheaper than your 87 E10. And the reason for that is because it's subsidized by the government. Government mandates that a certain amount of ethanol is placed in gasoline. In my opinion, ethanol belongs in your liquor cabinet, not your gas tank, but the EPA has the rules and they enforce it. So you have 10%, but the E15, it's about 30 cents a gallon cheaper. I tried using it in my car and it worked fine. I tried using it in my wife's Camry and it worked fine. Would I do it all the time? Maybe not. Um, your E15 has 88 octane instead of 87. So you get a tiny boost of octane because alcohol has a higher octane ratio than gasoline. I think pure alcohol would probably be like 110 octane. But with alcohol, it's corrosive, it's hygroscopic. In other words, it attracts moisture. Um, and ethanol has a lower BTU content than gasoline. So if you put the E15 in your car, theoretically, you're going to get fewer miles per gallon. Now, to throw a monkey wrench into it, many gas stations in Virginia are now starting to sell E85. Okay. The E15 has a blue handle on the pump. I think diesel pumps are green. Unleaded pumps are black on the handle. But the E15 has a separate hose and it's blue. And then they have the E85 pump, which is yellow. Sometimes it'll have a corn cob underneath, a picture of a corn cob underneath it, because it's made from corn. But the E85 is for flex fuel vehicles only. You'll have a yellow gas cap. I know Chevy, some of the older Chevy Silverados were flex fuel, and the Ford Crown Victoria that used to be made, the one that was a police car, they were flex fuel. And I believe Ford Fusion in certain years could be flex fuel where it would have a yellow gas cap on it. You can run E85 in it. The engine is calibrated for it. It'll automatically know. But using E85 in anything that's not a flex fuel vehicle will possibly severely damage your engine and void your warranty. So you wouldn't want to do that. Only use the E85 if you have flex fuel or some high performance cars. Some people buy new Mustangs and they run them on E85 because they get so much more horsepower. If it's tuned to run on E85, then you can do it. If it's not, then don't. But the E85, if let's say unleaded 87 is 289 a gallon, the E15 will be like 259 a gallon. It's about 30 cents less than the E10 87. That's E15 88. The E85 is 94 octane because the alcohol makes the octane a lot higher. Um, so, but that's the E85, but your gas mileage is going to go in the dumper because the ethanol has a lower BTU content than gasoline. It does burn cleaner, gives you higher octane, but it burns quicker. So you're going to sacrifice your fuel economy. But I've seen that as low as like 230 a gallon. I've seen it 25 cents lower than the E15. So it's going to cost you less to fill up, but you're probably not going to go as far. I used to work with a guy who had a Chevy Tahoe that was programmed to run on E85. And he said it was great when he filled up because it cost him a whole lot less per tank, but he wasn't able to go as far. He said it came out about the same because the fuel was cheaper, but it's only cheaper because it's subsidized. The government mandates something and then they subsidize it. So it's artificially cheaper. It's still, the rest of us end up paying for it in the end. Ethanol cannot be sent through a pipeline, so they have to truck it. so that it burns up more fuel. You don't get as much from ethanol burning it as you do as it takes to make it. You also have to transport; it has to be handled separately. It attracts moisture, and sometimes it causes issues in cold weather and whatnot. But anyway, when you go to a fuel station, you should also try and go to a place that gets a lot of deliveries where they sell a lot of fuel. Now, I've heard that it's bad to get fuel when there's a tanker truck delivering there because it's stirring up sediment. I've never found that to be a problem myself. Um, I've I've gotten fuel at gas stations when there's been a tanker truck there. Especially if they get a lot of deliveries all the time, that means the fuel is not sitting underground forever and ever. So there's probably going to be less chance of sediment or moisture to get in there. If you buy gasoline from a place that might get one delivery every couple of weeks, you might get some sediment in there. Another thing you have to look for when you buy gasoline, look at the gas pump. If you live in a state that has a Department of Weights and Measures, which I assume all of them do, you're going to see a little, it just looks like a postage stamp, but it's bigger. And it'll have a hole punched into it as to when the pump is calibrated. The state is supposed to check the calibration of the pump. Now, as far as the calibration for what octane you're getting, I don't really, I don't know. Short of the government coming out and auditing a station, I don't know how they would enforce that. When you go to a gas pump, if you go to Costco, all Costco has is regular and premium. They have 87 octane regular, 93 octane premium. When you put fuel in your car, you're getting one or the other. Some stations will sell mid grade, but they don't really have a mid grade section in the tanker delivering the fuel. That pump is responsible for mixing the regular and the premium. So if you're getting 87 octane um, regular and you have say 93 octane premium and the mid grade says 89, there's supposed to be some kind of actuator that mixes the regular with the premium so that you get the proper grade. But are you really getting it? What if the guy has the thing off so that you're getting more regular than you are premium? Then you have to look at the price. Let's say regular is say 289, mid grade is 319, and premium is 329. Well, if you're getting mid grade, say it's 30 cents more a gallon than the regular and 10 cents a gallon less the premium, well then you're probably better off just going ahead and springing for the premium. Or if you don't trust the blend mechanism and your vehicle, I used to have a Silverado. It could run an 87, but it would ping going up a hill. It would ping like a Jamaican steel drum. So I would about every third tank I would top it off with premium, and that stopped it. But you might be better off getting regular, and then maybe every third time you fill up, just go ahead and throw some 93 in there if it's only 10 cents more than the 89. That's what you got to look out for. Normally, if you had 87 and you had 93, if you could buy a mid grade that was 90 octane, the price should be right exactly in the middle. But a lot of times it's not. The mid grade is usually priced a lot closer to the premium than it is to the regular. So you're sort of getting ripped off if you do that. Um, Assuming that the blending would be perfect. Um, Also, you hear about you shouldn't get gasoline when it's hot outside because of the expansion that you'd be getting less gas. I think that's kind of a myth because the the meter through the pump measures the gasoline going in there, and if your gasoline is expanded, then your meter is going to turn, um, I guess, faster. So you're still going to get the same amount of fuel, but the gasoline in the tank underground is going to be pretty much the same temperature regardless of what the weather is outside. Now, you do have in your tank of your car, you have expansion and contraction that has a lot more to do with the weather than the gas underground. So if it's hot outside, the gasoline in your tank and the vapor is going to expand, not so much the stuff underground. And you can't really help that. If it's a hot day outside and you got to get gas, you got to get gas. Um, And I have a tendency to do it when you put gas in your car and you hear it filling up and the nozzle shuts off. I tend to like go up to the next 25 cents or whatever. I don't think I'll ever break that habit. I don't know if it's OCD or what. Even when I pay by credit card, I always do that. You really shouldn't put much more in there when it shuts off. You don't want to get that charcoal canister wet with fuel because your tank still has to breathe a little bit. So if you put in like another 25 cents, I don't think it'll hurt things. But if you're at, say, 35, let's say you're at $39.15 and you squeeze in another 85 cents, that might potentially harm the engine. If you put in another 10 or 15 cents, I don't think it's going to do anything. But with paying with credit card, you don't have to worry about, rounding up for change or anything like that. Most of the time you pay at the pump. And speaking of paying at the pump, um, always make sure that um, the when you pull up to the pump, uh, make sure that you don't accidentally put the wrong fuel in your car. I've seen some pumps where the diesel nozzle is right next to the hose for the unleaded. Now the diesel, the thing is not going to fit into your tank. They make the diesel one bigger. But if you have a diesel car, it's a lot easier to put unleaded in your vehicle by mistake. Um, these are things you sort of have to watch out for. Some stations will have a filter on the side of the pump. It looks like an oil filter, but it's bigger. It's like an extra filter, but who knows how often they ever change those. Um, Nobody really knows. But just, it may be worth it to spend 5 cents more and get top tier fuel. But every state has different brands that are top tier. Like here in Virginia, we have we're seeing a lot of marathon stations, but we don't have any Sinclair that I know of. We don't have any Phillips 66 anymore. I haven't seen Texaco in years. We don't have Hess anymore. I think Hess still does oil field operations, but they don't sell gasoline anymore. I don't see any Chevrons around here. I know they still exist, but I don't see them. Valero, we have plenty of those. But out west, you might have Unocal, um, Conoco, Boron, Sohio. Um, I think they have one called Standard out there somewhere. The fuel, the types of fuel you buy are different, but if you go on top tier gas, you can probably find a list and just check out, make sure um, that the fuel pumps are when they have that weights and measures things on there. And when you buy with a credit card, you have the thing where you tap on it, double check and make sure that somebody hasn't stuck a skimmer on there. They have a thing called a skimmer that they put on a gas pump and it looks just like the credit card thing, but it sticks over top of it. They've done this at ATMs before too. And you stick your card in there and it captures your information. And if they have a camera or something set up, they can see your PIN if it requires you to type in your PIN. Um, I know a lot of stations now have the one where you tap it, and I think that's safer. Um, but the fraudsters are always out there. But yeah, just think about it. If you have a vehicle that like a Nissan Altima, a Toyota Corolla, a Camry, Honda Civic, pretty much any normal vehicle is going to run fine on 87. You're not going to do anything for it by running premium in it. The car isn't set up for that. If you have like a Nissan Maxima, an Infiniti, Lexus, I think the Subaru BRZ and the Toyota GR86, they're set for premium gasoline. Some cars have a knock sensor where it'll retard your timing, but use whatever your owner's manual tells you to. If it says to use 91, run a tank of 87 and then maybe run a tank of 93. You'll pretty much be able to tell. If it pings, then you need to use a higher octane fuel. New cars don't need to be tuned up like old cars used to, where you had to adjust the timing and everything. The computers will do that. Um, but it doesn't hurt if um, you have a vehicle that you do a lot of towing with. I don't I don't know if putting higher octane is really going to do much for you if the compression ratio of the engine is not set up for that. Then you probably don't need premium fuel. But talk to your mechanic, look at your owner's manual, and make that decision. I have been at the gas station and I've seen somebody with I don't know, it was a Toyota Corolla or something, and they were putting 93 octane in, and it's like, yeah, that's throwing good money after bad. But I think sometimes the gasoline companies market the premium, and it makes people think it's going to help their car. And if you have a high performance car like a Corvette or a Mustang GT, yes, premium will help you. But for your average family car, it's not necessary. Um, Premium fuel, a lot of times, a rip off too, because it only costs them a few pennies more a gallon, but they charge a ton more money for it. So that's something else you have to think about. The marketing. There's a lot of marketing involved, snake oil stuff, that is out there. But the main thing is take care of your car. It'll take care of you. But consider if you have gasoline direct injection or a turbocharged engine, um, especially if you have one with both, like a new Honda Accord where you've got a turbo and a gas direct injection. The top tier fuel is probably worth it, even if it costs you a few pennies a gallon. It's probably worth it in the long run for your car. It'll keep it running better because new vehicles, gas is cheap relatively compared to what it costs to have your whole fuel management system fixed or have your engine rebuilt. So, cars cost a lot of money. Take care of them. All right. That's enough rambling on for today. Have a good day.